Welcome to the Atlanta Wellness Clinic podcast. Hosted by licensed nutritionist and clinic owner Katina Wilson, we're here to kickstart your weight loss journey. Because let's be honest, the only thing we want gaining weight is our wallets. From medical weight loss and nutrition coaching to body contouring, we help Metro Atlanta women get real results. Let's dive in.
GLP-1s are effective, but they're not forever. In this episode, we explore what happens when the prescription ends and how to create a smart, sustainable plan for maintaining results long after the medication is gone. Welcome back, everyone. I am Millie M., co-host and producer, back in the studio with licensed nutritionist and clinic owner Katina Wilson. Katina, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Doing well. Emotional eating is something so many people struggle with, including myself. I know our listeners will gain a lot from this conversation. Let's talk about the post GLP-1 plan. What happens when you stop the medication?
Hopefully, as you were going through your GLP-1 journey, you thought of it as riding a bike with training wheels, right? You're learning how to ride that bike. And eventually, as you're learning to ride that bike, you become more confident and you take the training wheels off and you no longer need them. So hopefully, like as you're on this journey, one of the things that we work with our patients on is improved nutrition, hydration, movement, especially the strength training. Hopefully, you're learning all of these good techniques and tactics and tools so that when you come off the medication, you will be able to sustain that weight loss over time. Now, what I will say is there may be some people who never get off the medication. We do have patients who will probably be on it forever. And a lot of it's because of genetics or maybe even hormonal, right? So for those individuals, they tend to stay on more of a maintenance dose. They don't want to necessarily lose, but they don't want to necessarily gain the weight back because of something that's genetic, something that they're predisposed to, that's going to cause them, to gain the weight. So I do want to say that most people will come off, but there are some through no fault of their own that will probably need to stay on the medication really for the rest of their life. But for those who don't want to, and that's in our clinic, that's most of our patients, they really want this finite, amount of time where they're actually on the medication. This is your opportunity to really embrace nutrition, getting the protein, eating more clean, getting the fiber, certainly getting the hydration. If you're doing all of those things in partnership with the medication, the weight's going to come off. If you continue to kind of reinforce those habits once you're off the medication, you should be able to maintain. It's really just that simple. So for us, when we have new patients come in, that's one of the first things that we talk about. We really try to understand like what their goals are. Do they want to be on this medications forever, or do they want to get off? Most want to get off. And so we reinforce, starting from the very first appointment and throughout their journey, the importance of clean eating to the best of their ability, real foods, hydration, fiber, and movement.
So there are those patients that find themselves doing a more long-term plan. Do you know of or have you seen any side effects from being on the medications long-term?
Not really. These medications have been around for a very long while. There are people who are diabetic, and that's really, kind of the basis of these medications to begin with. That's primarily what they were used for in the beginning. And there have been people, as a result of being diabetic, they've been on these medications for 10 plus years, if not longer. So these medications have been around for a while. And so for most, again, the side effects initially are very minimal. Longer term, we're not necessarily like seeing any major side effects other than the weight loss and everything that comes with, like losing weight, that sort of thing. So no, we're not seeing a lot of long-term issues, if you will.
Understood. And I love that bike analogy because they say once you learn how to ride a bike, you never forget. So it's one of those things that I feel like once those healthy habits are in place, even if you cheat a little bit or fall off the wagon, you always know
you can get back on. And everybody understands that analogy. I think just about all of us as children at some point, we learned to ride a bike, and we didn't just jump on the bike and we're immediately able to go. We started with training wheels. And so it's such a great analogy because regardless of like who you are and where you are in life, we all probably went through that journey. And so that's one of the reasons why we do use that analogy in clinic.
Love that. So, is there a way that you all, because I know you're not therapists, but there, again, there's so much psychologically that's connected to weight loss. How do you help your patients establish those healthy coping mechanisms when they want to emotionally eat or when they feel
Yeah, no,
control?
that's such a great question because we do even sometimes with people who are even on the medication. Sometimes they'll call us and they're just like, I'm still gaining weight or I'm still having the cravings, and and they could be on a fairly high dose of the medication. So that's when we start to kind of dig in. So tell me what's going on with life. What are your sleep habits? Send me pictures of your food. We want to see what your food, because our doctor, he's funny. He goes, some people think something's healthy and they're really not, right? And so we're really trying to not only educate, but we're also trying to coach. And so, we will dig in sometimes and ask additional like personal questions, not because, we're just trying to be in people's business, but we're really trying to understand like, well, what's going on with them day to day, because stress is a huge factor in, your ability to lose weight. And so if you're completely stressed, your hormones are out of whack, especially that cortisol, and sometimes you can just look at a person and you see and you're like, yep, they've got a level of stress, right? People who work kind of odd hours and aren't getting much sleep, it's going to throw those hunger hormones off. And so they are, even with the medication, they are still going to likely be hungry. So we talk to our patients about those things and, and what some different tactics are that they could do or should try, whether it's meditation and things like that, or maybe, reconsider your health or that job. Maybe try a different job if it's not going to allow you to get the appropriate amount of sleep. We had one patient that was literally having to wake up every 2 hours to do her job. And, and she was struggling to lose the weight. And again, with that lack of sleep, throwing off those hunger hormones, it was no wonder that she was struggling. And so she's got a tough decision that she's going to have to make, as it relates to her health versus her job. You can have both. You should be able to have both. So she's got a tough choice that she's going to have to make. So we try to ask a lot of questions, a lot of probing questions. We're listening with an empathetic ear. But, once we kind of uncover what we feel like are some of the root causes, we try to coach our clients with various tactics that they can try.
Sounds like a lifestyle change. And even
It is. It absolutely is.
with jobs, not just sleep, but there's a lot of temptation. I remember I started a job and they took us out to eat and they had cakes and cupcakes and candy all within the first 2 weeks. And my body was like, no, ma'am. So there is a lot of temptation. And at first I was thinking, like, why would you need to develop good habits if you have these medications? But I would think that seeing the results would make you want to stick with the habits. Do you
Absolutely.
see this
Absolutely.
type?
And so not even just seeing the results, but I'll use another example. We had another patient, she's going through this journey, and she talks about the fact that she's eating better foods now, the clean foods now. When she goes to a restaurant and she eats something bad, or she goes to somebody's house and she eats something that's like really, really indulgent, she doesn't feel good. So cleaning up your diet teaches you in a way like how you should feel, how your body should feel. If you're eating junk all the time, after a while, it just feels normal. But once you clean it up and you start to feel different, when you start to eat something bad, something that's overly indulgent, you don't feel so good anymore and you don't like that feeling. And so she and I chatted about that a bit, because that was reinforcement for her that, wow, I am going down a better path, because eating this thing that used to bring me so much joy, now I just don't feel good anymore.
Wonderful side effect of changing your habits. You can retrain your body and your taste buds to crave the right
Absolutely.
things. Thank you so much for opening up this discussion and giving people a plan to step off of these medications and go on in the future of their lives. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Atlanta Wellness Clinic podcast. If you're ready to kickstart your weight loss journey, and not just your bathroom scale and frustration, visit atlwellnessclinic.com or call us at 770-726-8978 for a free 10-minute weight loss consultation. Because the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time? Right now. See you next time.